Carolina Cobras.
If I take that field, and my game starts to slack, I have no fear. My brother got my gun.
Catch them all season long.
That's all we got. That's all we got.
On your home for Triad Sports.
Oh, are we right? Are we right? Oh, we right.
TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com.
Beamer Tire and Auto Repair, now with 3 locations across the Triad in High Point, Greensboro, and our new location in Kernersville. Beamer Tire and Auto offers full-service auto repair, all tire brands, free alignment checks, oil changes, and more. In Kernersville, check out the no appointment needed Quick Lube shop. Check out their thousands of 5-star ratings via Google and Yelp. They care because they know that you can go anywhere. So try a shop with a beating heart, not a bottom line. Beamer Tire and Auto Repair. Visit us on Facebook or at beamertire.com. One stop number 6, located just 1 mile west of East Forsyth at 2748 West Mountain Street, Kernersville. A proud supporter of East Forsyth since 1983, serving fresh fried chicken and our famous taters 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. For a limited time, grab our Wife Saver family meal for only $13.99. 8 pieces of chicken and sides for 4 for just $13.99. One stop. Come see us at 2748 West Mountain Street in Kernersville.
You are locked into Tobacco Road Sports Radio's TGIF lineup.
Cause it's Friday, you ain't got no job, and you ain't got shit to do.
I ain't set this up. I ain't know nothing about this. This is the most incredible thing I've ever seen. Damn it. Hey.
You're welcome. TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com.
Charlotte out of timeout. Here's Morning. The shot.
Who's going to get off?
Here he comes. Here he comes. He's got him this time. It's going to be a drag race. Wow. They touch. Craven got him. Craven got him. By Lundquist. Now Ponagorowski with it. 2-1 in front. Block there. Scramble for it there. They plunk away at it. Still it's loose. Pumped out by Cobleton. They score. Entry. It's over.
The runner at third, nobody out in the first and didn't score. Second and third, one out in the second and didn't score. Smith corks one into right down the line. It may go. Go crazy, folks. Go crazy. It's a home run, and the Cardinals have won the game.
Welcome to The Score. Here's your host, Brett Wiseman.
Score with Brett Wiseman. Welcome to The Score. There we go. Now I'm unmuted. Breaking news out of the NHL just before we came onto the air. Patrick Laine staying in Columbus. 4 years, $8.7 million average annual value. We'll get into this later on in the program, but apparently the Cardinals have made a preliminary offer for Juan Soto of the Washington Nationals, one of 3 teams in on him. We'll get into that and everything that goes along with that later on. Steve, of course, cares about that as well. But
can I also say this, Brett?
Yes.
In this hockey update involving Matthew Tkachuk, my interest is low right now. So I thought you were about to say something about bringing him home. But anyway, that's a subject for another segment.
Yes, that we'll get into the Matthew Tkachuk, and then as the Calgary Flames turn, I guess is how we're going to put it. Because that's turned into a soap opera up there in the Saddle Dome. But you've been in Charlotte the past 48 or so hours. You're back in the 919 now, but the last 2 days in the 704 ACC Kickoff going on at the Westin in Uptown Charlotte. I heard a lot of things about some funky outfits. I heard Sam Hartman dressed up as a character from Peaky Blinders. I heard a certain North Carolina wide receiver went completely all white. So there were happenings. But the biggest thing for you especially was this was Mike Elko's first public media day experience as the head coach of the Duke Blue Devils. What were your first impressions of him throughout the last couple of days?
Yeah, and for him, it's not about sartorial splendor or whatever you want. About the Josh Downs and those guys are all, and Sam Hartman were about the gram. So that's fine. Hey, it's July. There's a whole room set aside at the Westin for like social media photos and all that stuff. It's all fun. It's all good. The kids love it. That's great. Mike Elko, yes, his first ACC kickoff as a head coach. He's been in the league previously at Wake Forest, so he knows. I'll tell you this. I found this interesting about him. He pulled me aside. He said, when I was at Wake, I had the hardest time keeping the division names in mind, like who was in what division. He said, I knew who was in Wake's division. He just didn't know if it was the Atlantic or the Coastal. And I said, well, that's fine. Now it's short-term memory. You don't care.
You're going to say, right? He's only got to deal with it for 1 year.
He said because they weren't really tied to like any kind of geographic thing, like Miami's in the Coastal because they're on the coast, right? Anyway. So that was a fun little aside from Mike Elko. But no, he knows he has an uphill battle, all that stuff. They're not – obviously everybody goes out to try to win the ACC championship. That's not realistic for Duke. Nobody in their right mind believes that. He has to get them back to competitiveness. They were not competitive the last year or the year before.
Last 2 years, really.
Right. And last year it was complete blowouts. Just getting dominated from the start of the game. There was such a lack of compete last year, and
Mike Elko, I would hope, from the Duke perspective, has at least come in and tried to reshape that culture a little bit to where it was 4 or 5 years ago under David Cutcliffe, where Duke was a football team that, regardless of where they were in the standings, where they were kind of middle of the road for Cutcliffe's last 5 or 6 years, and then kind of started to go downhill, especially the last 2 years, Duke was still a football team that you didn't want to play because you were going to get a dogfight regardless of where they stood.
Exactly, and they things like they didn't beat themselves with penalties, and they tackled well, and turnovers didn't kill them. Well, the last 2 years, that's what sank them, was all three of those things I just mentioned. And like one thing Elko's doing, and it sounds very small, but like in the weight room and all the work they're doing this off season, there's consequences for winning and losing. And so if you win,
there's competition in there. Yeah.
Yes, you're creating, even though it sounds cliche or whatever, but they didn't compete the last 2 years, right? So you've got to start somewhere. And that's kind of what the players have told us is different.
Right. To create or recreate a culture like that, to cultivate a competitive nature, that's a great way to do it. Things like that, things like drills in practice. If you get run over in this drill, you got to, this, that, we've heard all these things before, but they work. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, The Athletic kind of brought back up a story that a lot of us kind of forgot about, that Mike Elko was directly involved with in his time at Wake Forest. That would be WikiLeaks, of course. And I'm sure Mike was asked about that because the report from The Athletic came out. Mike was asked about that a lot. Did you talk to him about that, and did he say anything about that coming back up? Because I heard in a couple interviews he was kind of glad that it was shoved under the rug for as long as it was, but he was also glad that it was brought back to light so that nothing like that would ever happen again.
Exactly, because it was. Think about that happening. The fact that it was Wake Forest and Louisville kind of made it the national media or national attention, fan base, whatever, kind of gloss over it. Like, well, that's interesting. Think if that would have been Alabama and LSU,
exactly,
right? And it very easily could have been. And I didn't talk to Mike about that this week. Okay, in the past we've had some discussion. We last month had some time to catch up. I and another reporter, and he and I had a couple hours to kind of sit around and chat and have lunch and get to know each other a little bit. And so we've talked about a lot of things about his career. One thing we talked about was Jimbo and Nick Saban.
Yeah. That had to be a fun conversation.
That was right when that was going on too. And he said, hey, nothing either one of those guys does is a surprise or like off the cuff. Like that whole thing was, they knew what they were doing.
It was calculated. Yeah.
Completely 100%. So don't think that like Jimbo came in the next day and said, Nick said, what? Oh, I better have a press conference. Like it was all, they knew what their competitors.
Nobody scheduled that for Jimbo. Jimbo said, all right, I'm going to say something. I know what I'm going to say. I knew what he was going to say. So,
yes. So anyway, so Mike Elko he has a very interesting background, and yeah, the Louisville. I don't want to gloss over WikiLeaks again because it's such an incredible story, and yeah, he was bit by that, and he didn't like it, and it's something that people should pay attention to because it does happen. Things like that happen.
They happen more often than I think. Yeah,
yes.
They happen more often than I think we care to admit, and
right,
that happened so close to home and didn't really get national attention outside of a couple of days there. But Mike Elko was directly involved with that, and now he's back on Tobacco Road and trying to cultivate a winner here. But he's got to face his old friend to do it. Every year,
they are
and
they've
that's
been
the other
perfect.
thing.
They have been partners. They played each other every year since, and now with the new scheduling, the 3-5-5.
Wake and Duke will play each other every year.
They will continue to play each other every year, so that's a good thing. And that is I've always said that is an underrated rivalry. People, Duke and Wake in football, whatever, small fan bases, they don't like each other. And it's interesting that Elko's now on this side and he was on that side, and there was a lot of they go after the same type of kids in recruiting. Have to have somebody with some brains to them, right, to play at those schools. So
right.
Yeah, it's fun.
Both are private, both are highly academic, right?
Exactly.
And Steve, I think I've said this to you before. There aren't a whole lot of times I can remember, even growing up, going to Wake Forest games that Wake and Duke would play early in the season or midway through the season, whether it was in Durham or in Winston-Salem. Wake Forest and Duke almost always guaranteed to play each other one of the last 2 weeks of the regular season. And it always means something for one or both of them, whether it's in the ACC standings, whether it's for bowl eligibility, whether it's to get from eligibility for one tier bowl to another tiered bowl. It always means something to them. And these, as you said, these are two teams that go after the same groups of kids. And for a team with as high a level of expectation as Wake Forest, predicted to be top 15 in the AP poll when the preseason poll comes out, Mike Elko's got to be sitting there and looking at Wake Forest and not just taking notes, but also telling his kids, hey, I know you played against half these guys in high school. We can beat these guys.
Right. And it's funny because when he came to Wake, that's when the Grove era had just ended, which had been a lot of success, right? But it petered out at the end.
Right.
And a change had to be made.
Much like Cutcliffe.
Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Yeah, sounds very familiar. So now he's on the other side. Now he's doing it again, but he's doing it at Duke instead of at Wake. So he saw the building of Wake and how Wake got going. He was very much part of the genesis of that. And now he's trying to do the same thing at Duke. And so, listen, 3-9, 4-8 would be probably a strong season for them this year, right? I mean, let's be honest. So if they can start getting that, but again, it's all about compete level, body tackling instead of arm tackling, little things like that they had just gotten away from,
staying
and frankly gotten kind of stale. Yeah, they had, and I knew the members of the old staff very well. I worked with him for a number. I mean, I Cutcliffe the whole time he was here, and it wasn't like they weren't trying, but their message just wasn't resonating. It just wasn't.
And that's the thing that, before we move on, that's the thing that I think has got to be hammered home is you've got to compete, you've got to stay disciplined because the penalties have been off the charts the past couple of years, as have the turnover. So you also got to take care of the football. I mean, the turnover problem has been systemic the last couple of years for Duke, and I think that might be priority 1B outside of just the compete level is hold on to the daggum football.
There is no doubt. In fact, the guys told me, I mean, obviously if you drop the ball, you got to do up downs, you got to do sprints immediately. Like in the middle of practice, ball goes in the ground, you're running. Or they've got to now, and when they're doing these drills, they got to complete them, not only complete them to the end, but 2 yards beyond the end, or they got to do like a set of up downs. So again, compete level type stuff.
you want to go the extra little bit because metaphorically, that extra little bit could win you a game against a Wake Forest or a Clemson who may have a quarterback controversy. That's an interesting thing that I heard come out the last 48 hours.
I was going to make a crack and make the difference for Duke against Charlotte, but let's move on to Clemson.
Yeah, they got to beat Charlotte first. But anyways,
right.
Mr. I still can't pronounce his name. Uiagalelei, is that right? Is that close enough?
Close enough.
We're getting into a Trevor
DJ.
Lawrence. Yes, DJ. We're getting into a Trevor Lawrence, Kelly Bryant kind of situation. I feel like where
we are.
DJ's backup is starting to get a little bit of a heat, a little bit of headlines that there are rumblings that he might play second or third series game 1 just so Dabo can see where he's at.
Cade Klubnik, right? That's our guy.
Right.
That's he's the next guy in line at Clemson. Yeah, I mean, well, part of it is, DJ had more interceptions than touchdown passes last year. It was 10-9, which is small, but you can't do that at Clemson. And there's a high expectations from what, so he's got to perform. And if this, quarterback controversy or whatever pushes him to be a little better, that's what they want. If it doesn't,
I think
they'll go with Cade. So
I think if anything, it's not necessarily manufactured, but it might be in a way to kind of nudge DJ along a little bit, just like the Patriots keeping Cam Newton around just so Mac Jones could have some competition last season, even though we knew who was going to be the starter when his name was called. But yeah, I mean, we might see what he has against, whatever cupcake they play week 1, but remains to be seen. One other thing I want to ask you, but Christian's got a couple questions too.
Sure. Mario
Cristobal taking over at Miami. He's axed the turnover chain. We know Miami has a reputation. We've had 2 30 for 30s on that. Okay, we've hammered that nail about as far into the piece of wood as it can go. But it's almost like he's trying to change a culture that didn't need changing. In my mind,
well, I mean, they needed changing because they haven't been as successful as they want to be.
Exactly. It almost seems like he's trying to change the outside culture instead of worrying about winning. It seems like he's more concerned about Miami's image than their play on the field right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess that's all he can do right now, right? So,
right.
But I will say that, I've been covering the ACC in this job since 2010. So Miami's been a complete disappointment the entire time, except for one season, right? So,
and remember when Miami and Miami and Virginia Tech, Miami and Boston College, came over from the Big East. Was it 2004, 2005?
No, you're right. And Virginia Tech, they all three came at the same little group.
Yeah, they all three came from the Big East at the same time. Yeah. Those were huge seismic moves at the time. And since then, Miami has not been the Miami that the ACC hoped they were getting.
And it's a big problem for the ACC. It's one of the reasons why they're in the predicament they're in right now.
Right.
Because if you think back to that realignment, Miami was just coming off the Butch Davis teams that went undefeated, the superstar teams, right? National championship team.
Ed Reed,
yes,
the U Part 2 teams, we'll put it that way.
Exactly. And they came into the ACC and everybody thought, it's going to be Miami and Florida State playing the championship game every other year and getting big TV numbers. It's never happened. And Virginia Tech was on a streak of 8 straight.
They just came off the Michael Vick era too. They were just coming out of that.
And then of course Virginia Tech's won 4 ACC championships since they came in, so they've kind of done their part to a certain extent. They've fallen off lately. So that's
Florida State's done their part to an extent too. Miami is really the only one of those 3 that hasn't. Right.
So now if all 3 were top 10, top 15 teams every year, along with Clemson, then you've got 4. That would work. That's all you're asking for. You don't need, SEC West, right? That's only one of those.
But the ACC needs Miami to be that Miami to get this notion that they're a weak football conference out of the way. that it's
100%.
Clemson against everybody.
Right, 100%. They do. And so,
and what was the sense you got from Mario about? Look, we don't know what kind of team he's got. Really, we kind of have an idea. We know they'll probably be ranked in the preseason poll, but what was the sense you got from him about his level of confidence going into this year that he as a alum, as a former Hurricane, it feels like he has an obligation to bring this program back to prominence.
He does, and they're putting the money behind it. And they went out and got him from Oregon. Of all the coaching hires they've made last few years, Al Golden came from Temple and, that kind of stuff, right? This is the big one. This was they bagged a big one there. So that was good. He knows he has a great quarterback. Tyler Van Dyke is a tremendous quarterback. I'm not convinced they're going to win the Coastal this year. I've been bitten too many times by Miami, but I think he's going to get them going in the right direction eventually, and they're going to be ready to go again.
Well, Christian, your North Carolina Tar Heels are a lot of people's pick to win the Coastal Division, and you have a couple questions for the other Mr. Wiseman
here. It's about UNC. First off, are you hearing anything? Fred, I work for the Tar Heel Sports Network. What do you want me to do? What are you hearing about the quarterback competition between Drake May and Jacoby Criswell? And then coming in with Mac Brown having all of these 4-star recruits, his real first class, is there any sort of expectation for what they could do, what they won't do this season?
Yeah, I'll start with the second one first. They've been racking up great recruiting classes after great recruiting class, and the feeling I get, and some other people around me have been talking about, one year it's going to pay off. It's really going to show, and it might be this year. In fact, my colleague Luke DeCock is predicting Carolina and State are going to play in the ACC championship game. In the very last Coastal versus Atlantic game, they're going to play the last game of the regular season and then turn around and play again the next week. Anyway, so that tells you what we think about the talent they have and what they've been bringing in year after year. It's time for that to mature and pay off. Now, quarterback Drake May, I think, I get the feeling. Now, again, they're not saying who the starter is going to be, right?
Yeah, of course.
So he just seems like, to me, he's the next guy. Just seems like it. Just seems like naturally going to follow in Sam Howell's footsteps, all that kind of stuff. So, we'll see about that, but nothing concrete on that. Just whispers here and there, but hearing some good things about him in particular.
Okay.
Is that all?
Yeah, mainly just want to know those two. Yeah.
Is that all, Mr. Light Blue? Okay. Carolina.
Can I say something real quick?
Yes.
I know you're gonna have a break. Real quick about Carolina and all that. I was just at a luncheon. It's called the Pigskin Preview. They have all the head coaches in the area for a luncheon to kick off the season, and they auction off helmets for each school for charity for scholarship fund. And Carolina's was auctioned off at $2,500, and Duke was next, and the first bid was $2,501. Bidding started at $2,501.
Of course it was.
Oh.
Oh.
I love this area. I love it.
I wonder what that could be in relation to. Interesting. Anyway, speaking of Carolina, one more thing I want to get your thoughts on, Steve, while we still have you. There's a lot of Carolina fans, Christian, as you know, that are going to think of this season opening game against Appalachian State as just another season opening game. That's not an easy place to play back there.
Oh, I'm not aware.
Ask Wake Forest. Now, there's Christian at Carolina. He is a Carolina fan, but more so an App State fan. That picture's now been spread all over the internet. He became famous as a result of freaking out for student radio. But I think, and again, Christian and I both are slightly slanted here, I think North Carolina can use this game against Appalachian State as a measuring stick for how the rest of the season's going to go. Because we know that the ACC overall has improved greatly the last couple of years. Last year, top 10 preseason ranking, they play on the road at Virginia Tech and get flattened. This year, They go into a really tough environment against an in-state rival that they lost to on their home field the last time. So you've got the revenge factor going into it.
A sellout game too.
You're going to have the biggest crowd in the history of the school. 40,000 people are somehow going to fit in there. And, I mean, I think we're going to have people standing on each other's shoulders at some point. But I don't know how we're going to get 40,000 people in there. But they're going to try anyway.
They're adding in some bleachers for that game.
They're going to have to.
God love Mac Brown for scheduling this game. For agreeing
Absolutely.
To it.
Yeah.
It's fantastic for college football. And with all this realignment, we're going to lose like regional rivalries. They're getting blown to hell. But so I love the fact that this is happening. And this game is so important to North Carolina that they scheduled a week 0 game against Florida A&M. So their first game wasn't at the Rock.
App State.
Right. Yeah. That's how big it is.
This is a measuring stick because, App State's the class of their conference, one of the classes of their conference. Again, you've got the revenge factor going into it. I think for North Carolina, if they can go win a game in an environment like that, Mac Brown's going to have to use that as a measuring stick, and all of us are going to have to use it as a measuring stick of however Carolina comes out of that is going to be an indicator of how the rest of the season might go.
No question about it. No question. Because you mentioned last year, the first road game, they laid an egg. And from the other side, look, if App wins this, they have a chance to represent the group of 5 in the
New Year's Six.
You know
exactly.
What I'm saying? Yeah,
which
absolutely.
is what they've been wanting for 3-4 years and have had shots at the last couple of years. If it wasn't for Georgia Southern, our senior year at Appalachian State, that was not fun. If it was the game at Coastal in the pandemic season, so. It's a team that App State has beaten before on the road, and just don't have what happened behind me happen again with the I think Wake Forest fans call it the block at the Rock. I didn't know it had a name until I did research the other night, but okay. Anyway. Let me get past that real quick. Anyways, moving on. Quickly, Steve, who's your ACC Player of the Year?
Sam Hartman.
Good pick.
There are so many great quarterbacks in the ACC, especially the Atlantic. I just think Sam Hartman. I listened to him talk the other day. He's got it. He's there. He's got the.
He sounds like he's 10 years older than he is.
And they get Donovan Green back, who
right.
I know we have to go to a break here, but Clausen said he thought last year Donovan Green was going to have the breakout season, not A.T. Perry, and now they got both of them.
They got both of them. So, yeah. Look, if you thought Wake Forest offense was scary last year, get ready, because they might put up 60 a game this year instead of 50. Steve Wiseman, thanks so much, as always. We'll have you on again. We're like a month away from this. It's coming.
Here we go.
College football's coming back. Thank you, Steve. Let's get in the break here. When we come back, Juan Soto's on the trade block. He turned down all that money. The Nationals refused to fly him to the All-Star game. He tried to hitch a ride with the Braves. They said no. Now the Nationals are shopping him, and there's a handful of teams that are in on him. Who has the farm systems deep enough to pull it off? We'll also talk about teams that could be buyers and sellers at the trade deadline. And there was some fun had in Los Angeles at All-Star game festivities as well.
You are listening to The Score with Brett Wiseman on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com.
Hey, are you sitting around wondering how much your house is worth? And today we'll wonder no more. Just ask your agent, Jenny Fulton with Allen Tate Realtor. Contact Jenny today for a free analysis on your home. Call her at 336-978-0041 or email at jenny.fulton@allentate.com and get the easy process started today. Why wait? In the market to buy, Jenny can help you find a perfect home in the Triad also. Jenny Fulton, Allen Tate Realty. Call 978-0041. Start the process and ask your agent today. Welcome to The Pit Stop, the only radio show produced in the Triad dedicated to Bowman Gray Cup. All divisions, modified, sportsman, street stock, and stadium stock. Tune in every Monday night at 8 p.m. on WTOB 980 AM and 96.7 FM, or throughout the week in the season on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com.
People we received from Mountain Valley Hospice made all the difference in all the my mother was able to live her best life even as she was leaving it.
Contact Mountain Valley Hospice at mtnvalleyhospice.org.
Number 6, located just 1 mile west of East Forsyth at 2748 West Mountain Street, Kernersville, a proud supporter of East Forsyth since 1983, serving fresh fried chicken and our famous taters 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. For a limited time, grab our Wife Saver family meal for only $13.99. 8 pieces of sides for 4 for just $13.99. One stop. Come see us at 2748 West Mountain Street in Kernersville.
This is Davis Trump, the dreary winter season. Come hit some golf balls, take a lesson.
We're back here on The Score with Brett Wiseman on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. Brett Wiseman, Christian Emery, our producer Desmond Johnson. Juan Soto is on the trade block. Remember, he turned down that massive multi-million dollar extension from the Washington Nationals. There's now 3 to 4 listed teams that have a shot at him. They've got to have farm systems, Christian, that are deep enough to pull this off. St. Louis, these guys, one of a few teams that's being rumored and have apparently already made a preliminary offer on Juan Soto. There's going to be multiple pieces to this, but as soon as he turned down the trade, the Nationals began exploring trade options for him. The entire city of New York wants him. That would be both the Mets and the Yankees. Not that the Yankees need him.
Please no.
They have enough. Okay, they've won 69 games or whatever it is now by the All-Star. Aaron Judge has 45 home runs already. He's probably going to have 60 by August, which is next week. Well, he plays in a bandbox, but that's neither here nor there. Anyways, the Cardinals have a handful of prospects. The Yankees have a handful of prospects. The Mets have a handful of prospects that the Nationals would love to have. Now, if you thought the Brooklyn Nets asking the Minnesota Timberwolves for Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns, and 4 first-round picks was too much, imagine what the Washington Nationals are going to ask for this guy. This is, I know he won the home run derby. Does that mean something? Yeah. This guy is a generational talent. We talked about generational talents in Trout and Ohtani last week. This guy's in that echelon of the next wave of baseball superstars. He is the next, in terms of Dominican superstars, he is the next Albert Pujols, David Ortiz, Manny Ramirez. He is the next face of baseball out of the Dominican Republic. There's kind of been a Manny Machado's kind of trying to throw himself up in there too, but Juan Soto is going to be why do you think he hung around Albert Pujols in Los Angeles the entire All-Star weekend? I mean, it's just pretty clear. He's trying to pick his brain while he still can. But like I said, there's only 3 teams that can pull this off. But let's go ahead and throw the Mets out of this, because there is no conceivable way that they are going to trade Juan Soto within the division.
Absolutely.
I don't care if the Mets sell off half their farm system. They're not sending him somewhere they still have to play him 40 times a year. That's not happening. That's not a thing that's going to occur. To me, it's between the Yankees and the Cardinals. Now, the Yankees have, let's see, the Yankees and Cardinals both had multiple guys in the futures game last weekend that showed up, showed off, and showed out. The Cardinals have a shortstop prospect by the name of Mason Wynn, who on a ground ball threw the runner out with a 100.5 mile-an-hour seed from shortstop. If you thought O'Neal Cruz's 97.6 in Miami was cool, Mason Wynn thought his was cooler, and it was. He was drafted, though, as a two-way player, which leads me to my next point. The Cardinals are not letting him pitch because they view him as the defensive wizard shortstop of the future, Ozzie Smith-like, in terms of his range at shortstop. I'm not comparing him to the greatest shortstop of all time. I'm saying the Cardinals think he can get to that point. There's potential there for him to be one of the best defensive shortstops of all time. He also has an absolute rocket ship for a right arm. There are not many human beings on the planet, if any, that can throw a 100.5 mile-an-hour seed accurately from 35 feet away. So he was drafted as a two-way player. The Cardinals aren't letting him pitch. We've seen this with St. Louis the past couple of 2 or 3 times that they've gone out and gotten someone, that they felt the need to go out and get someone. They might have lost the Marcell Ozuna trade. They sent Sandy Alcantara, their top pitching prospect at the time, to the Marlins, who's now within the next 2 years guaranteed to win a Cy Young. Very well could have started the All-Star game Tuesday night if it wasn't in Los Angeles. It's the only reason Clayton Kershaw started it. Alcantara came into the game and pitched fantastic, as everybody knew he would. You gave up a future Cy Young candidate for 2.5 years of, to put it mildly, mid Marcell Ozuna. He hit like 250, didn't do even half of what he did the final year he was with the Marlins, which is what you got him for, was that offensive prowess when he hit behind Giancarlo Stanton. But to get Paul Goldschmidt, the Cardinals traded their top catching prospect, someone who was going to be, as they thought, the catcher of the future in Carson Kelly, who's now been the starting catcher in Arizona the past 2 years. They traded Luke Weaver in that deal, who's been a mid-rotation piece for the Diamondbacks the past 2 years. The Nolan Arenado trade. They traded one of their best pitching prospects in Austin Gomber. He's now the ace for the Colorado Rockies. The latter two of which have worked out pretty well, I would say, considering Paul Goldschmidt's 1 inning of all-star action was catching a pickoff of Shohei Ohtani and then going yard. We'll talk about that in a second, but because we're going to recap all-star happenings and all that, but the Cardinals have, and the Yankees both have, a plethora of prospects that the Washington Nationals would love to have. They are only going to trade Juan Soto somewhere where there's a farm system deep enough where they can pluck at least four top prospects away from one of those teams. The Yankees have Anthony Volpe. They have Jason Dominguez, who homered in the futures game. They've got a couple of really good catching prospects. They've got good pitching prospects. The Cardinals just drafted one of the best pitchers in the draft, the kid out of Oregon State who led all of college baseball in strikeouts a year ago, the big lefty, Connor Jerpy, out of Oregon State. He might get thrown into a deal eventually. The other thing is, there's a clog at third base. His name's Nolan Arenado. Jordan Walker is a third baseman by trade. He played in the futures game at third base, but the Cardinals want him to become an outfielder. Here's the other problem. If you trade for Juan Soto, you might as well throw him in there, because then you really have nowhere to put him. The reason you traded Carson Kelly was because there was a logjam at catcher. His name's Yadier Molina. He's still playing. Carson Kelly was not meant to be a 3-4 year backup as Andrew Kisner has been. Carson Kelly was meant to be a starter from the day He was called up to the big leagues. They made him that. Jordan Walker's not meant to sit behind Nolan Arenado at third base and occasionally DH like Juan Yepez is doing because Paul Goldschmidt plays first base. The Cardinals have an obligation to make a move because they have Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado. The St. Louis Cardinals cannot become the Los Angeles Angels. They cannot stray away from the fact that they have two of the best players in baseball on their same roster at the same time. They have to go out and make a move to try and win. That is not trading for John Lester and J.A. Happ like they did last year. That was making a move to make a move, both of which are now retired and receiving senior citizen care because they pitched for St. Louis when they were both in their, 70s. I don't know. When did Julio Franco retire? When he was 85? Jamie Moyer pitched until his right arm fell off. I don't know. Both those guys seem like they did too. But one more thing I want to add here. There's a discrepancy that may put the Cardinals over the top, that may separate them from the Yankees and anyone else that gets in on this. The Nationals want someone to take on Patrick Corbin, the left-handed starting pitcher's massive contract. Because he was overpaid for one good season and has not been good the past two. So the Nationals want someone to take on at least a sizable portion of his salary. The St. Louis Cardinals reportedly are willing to do that, and they need starting pitching badly. This is where the Cardinals can't become the Los Angeles Angels, who they're also in talks with about Noah Syndergaard, I might add. But that's the Angels' motto. They go out and sign washed-up pitchers and think, yeah, they'll just throw strikes and we'll be fine. No. The Cardinals are in need of starting pitching. They're in talks with the A's about Frankie Montas. They're in talks with the Angels about Noah Syndergaard. But they're also one of the only teams that's willing to not only A, take on Patrick Corbin's massive contract, or at least a portion of it, B, they are willing, from what I understand and what's been reported, willing to almost immediately offer Juan Soto that massive extension plus more than what the Nationals offered him, because Scott Boras, his agent, said it was too low. Well, that's Scott Boras. We know him. The Cardinals are willing to pay over that $15,440 mark to keep Juan Soto. So one more thing I want to say. St. Louis Cardinals fans, if you are concerned about giving up a top prospect or multiple top prospects for what you think could be a 2-year rental and that Juan Soto will just bolt in free agency, you really think that Juan Soto would spend all that time around Albert Pujols if A, he didn't love Albert, B, he didn't want to be a Cardinal? Do you think Juan Soto grew up watching Albert Pujols, idolizing him? Yes, he did. Everyone in the Dominican Republic idolized Albert Pujols. There are a lot of kids in the Dominican Republic that want to play for the St. Louis Cardinals because of Albert Pujols. That's the kind of impact he's had. You traded almost a guaranteed Cy Young Award winner for Marcell Ozuna. There should be no issue giving up multiple top prospects when you have a chance to get 15 years of one of the greatest left-handed hitters of all time, the next Ken Griffey Jr.
I have a question.
Yes.
Can you name one of these long 12, 15-year contracts that have actually worked out for the franchise?
No.
So why would they be in such a rush to sign Soto to a 15-year deal worth $500 million? Like Mike Trout.
The only way Washington is going to trade him. The only way Washington is going to trade him is if they know someone's going to lock him up.
Right. My question is, why would anybody lock him up for that length of time? Like any MLB team. Like, shouldn't all baseball be looking at this and looking at Mike Trout the way he was 3-4 years ago when he signed this huge deal, and the way he has not been available ever since he signed it? Or even Albert Pujols, who you mentioned, who kind of started this whole craze with these long deals. Him and Miguel Cabrera, a couple others.
You got Freddie Freeman that signed that big deal with the Dodgers. Some of these deals have worked. Some of these deals have backfired greatly. I think from the Cardinals' perspective, you have to look at this as differently than the Angels in that you feel like you have pieces, right? You have Nolan Arenado. You have Paul Goldschmidt. You have okay pitching. You've got good other pieces around. You have Tyler O'Neill. You have Tommy Edman, Nolan Gorman, Dylan Carlson, Harrison Bader. You've got other good pieces in the lineup. You need that one big left-handed bat. No, it's not Corey Dickerson. And you need starting pitching. Hopefully Juan Soto made an impression on somebody with the St. Louis Cardinals. And report out today. Christian, go.
I just had one. So say say they do the Nationals and the Cardinals do agree to the trade. Obviously, you would think, unless Washington's incredibly stupid, which is the Nationals, so it might be. I don't know. They're going to want a proven player who's been.
They're going to want at least one or two major league ready players, and so that might end up being a Dylan Carlson, a Juan Yepez. Like I said before we get in the break, there's Cardinals fans that are trepid about giving up this much. You gave up someone who's guaranteed to win a Cy Young Award for 2 years in Marcell Ozuna. You should have no problem giving up a Dylan Carlson or a Harrison Bader or a Juan Yepez plus top prospects for a generational left-handed hitter.
Okay. So are those that answers my question. Is that the group of prospects that you're comfortable giving up? Or not prospects, the group of major league players that are
out of those major league ready guys? Yes, that would be it. But you're going to have to throw in Jordan Walker, Mason Wynn, Nate Burleson, some other top prospects from your farm system. But the Cardinals and the Yankees are the only ones that have multiple top 50 prospects overall in their system. So they're the only two that can pull this off. The question is, will they pull the trigger? Apparently St. Louis has been given, ownership has given John Mozeliak in the front office approval to pursue, and I quote, any and all opportunities to acquire Juan Soto. So this thing's going to heat up before August 2nd. Speaking of trades, when we come back, Matthew Tkachuk's on the block. Could he be going home to St. Louis? Could he be going to Carolina? Is that a thing? We don't know. Let's break down the soap opera that is Calgary Flames. And, speaking of trades, Jimmy Garoppolo also on the block, apparently. We'll dive into it.
You are listening to The Score with Brett Wiseman on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com.
The choices you make for end-of-life care impact your entire family. Mountains understands that. When my mother became ill, we counted on their in-home care and later their hospice home. Mama's caregivers became her friends. Their aftercare program
homes to serve you. Contact Mountain Valley Hospice at mtnhospice.org.
It's the high school football game of the week.
Listen, man, tonight is the night.
Not one, but two of the best games in the Triad every Friday. To action on WTOB 980 AM and 96.7 FM. Or tune in to our second game on WCOG 1320 AM. Both games powered by TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com, your home for Triad Sports.
Looking to tailgate this summer? Stop by One Stop on the Way. One Stop number 6, located just 1 mile west of East Forsyth at 2748 West Mountain Street in Kernersville. One Stop serves fresh fried chicken and our famous taters 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Feeding a crowd? Get 16 pieces of chicken and sides for just $27.99. Craving wings? Come try our new spicy breaded wings. Get a 5-wing meal with 6 taters and a roll for just $7.39. Now in regular hot ranch or spicy. One Stop number 6, 2748 West Mountain Street in Kernersville.
Carolina Cobras.
If I take that field, and my game starts to slack, I have no fear. My brother got my gun.
Catch them all season long
That's all we got. That's all we got.
On your home for Triad Sports.
Oh, are we right here? Are we right here? Oh, we right here.
TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. Welcome back to The Score with Brett Wiseman here on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com.
Are we going to see Cars? Is it like showing at some park somewhere, or I don't know. There might be some small triad municipality that's showing that as part of a kids' movie night. I don't know. Probably. Thanks, Des.
But you got to get some Rascal Flats.
I have nothing against. I love the song. I'm just saying that now I want to watch the movie. Des, you've made me use my Disney Plus subscription. How dare you? Anyways, Matthew Tkachuk, he's on the trade block. Jimmy Garoppolo, he's on the trade block. Kyler Murray and James Harden, you've gotten paid. Congratulations. Miles Bridges, you're probably going to prison. Congratulations. There's a lot that's transpired in the last few weeks. Des, you okay there?
Yeah, I'm good. You mentioned the whole you threw Miles in there out of nowhere, and I was just like, oh, I didn't realize you were going to go there, but
look,
just go.
I'm gonna.
He's going to jail. He's going to jail.
I'm going to sit up for this because I feel like I need to say this. As much as it's going to suck for the Hornets to lose Miles Bridges, as important a player as he is, and again, this is one of those, we don't know the whole story. We don't know everything yet until it plays out in the court of law kind of things. If from what I've seen, and when you dig into his rap lyrics, there are some things in his rap lyrics that, I've read them, that match up with some of the things that have come out.
Nah, don't go that way. Don't go that route because
I've seen that.
That's a slippery slope to apply what he's said in the microphone to what he's actually.
And look, I'm not saying those two things are related. I'm just saying that there have been some similarities. Let's put it that way.
What is he? 24, 25, something?
Yeah,
like
he's gonna write what he feels like he's gonna write and what's gonna sell. But you know,
Hornets fans, here's what's happening. The Hornets have put the qualifying offer of $7 million on Miles Bridges so that they could match any offer that any team gave him. No team has matched it because Miles Bridges is accused of domestic violence. So what's going to end up happening for those that are worried about the Hornets coming out of this with nothing, that qualifying offer, what will end up happening is that some other team is probably going to try to offer Miles Bridges some sort of short-term deal when all this kind of blows out. And at that point, the Hornets will be able to match and sign and trade. So they'll still be able to get something back for him. They won't just lose him for nothing. But if you're holding on to the hope that Miles Bridges is going to be a Charlotte Hornet going forward, he is not. And we'll probably be okay. He was a 20-point-per-game scorer. He can be replaced. It hurts to see somebody that we drafted grow into a role where he could potentially blossom, and then he throws it all away. But, hey, we're not in the business of holding hands.
He was on the cusp of a max deal. But here's the thing. If indeed what he is accused of he did and actually happened in front of his children, I hope he never plays another game for the Charlotte Hornets. As a fan of the team, I don't want someone like that does things like that in front of his children on my franchise, on my basketball team. I don't.
It's pretty clear. Based off the images posted, the it's just the first time that the abuse has come out.
Right, and apparently it's been going on for some time. So yeah, we're not here to make light of any of this and try to shift the conversation to be basketball centric. This is serious, and it's heinous, and needs to be treated as such. Christian, while we have a few minutes, Matthew Tkachuk of the Calgary Flames, as the Saddle Dome turns, I guess we could call it now. It's a soap opera up there. Johnny Gaudreau to Columbus. Flies dropping left and right up there. Matthew Tkachuk has told the Calgary Flames, in case you missed it, hockey fans, that he will not sign a long-term deal. The Flames are going to try and take him to arbitration However, it would probably behoove them to trade him before said arbitration hearing, or they're really going to be in deep doo-doo. Yep. Matthew Tkachuk, as most of you know, is the son of former St. Louis Blue Keith Tkachuk, as is Brady Tkachuk in Ottawa. So that's why a lot of people think he could go to Ottawa, but he is given, as I told you, the Calgary Flames a list of teams that he would be willing to sign a long-term deal with. And apparently, Calgary is not going to trade him not going to trade him to a team that won't sign him long-term. They're only going to send him to a team that is going to be willing to sign him long-term. A source familiar with Tkachuk's list of potential long-term partners. At the top of it, guess who? St. Louis, Vegas, Florida, Nashville, and Dallas also on the list. New Jersey and the Rangers have reached out before. I wouldn't throw them in there. Carolina, maybe. They might be thrown into this ring too. But look, I don't see... I know it's wishful thinking, but the way I know the St. Louis Blues operate, they got a Conn Smythe winner from the Buffalo Sabres who was disgruntled and signed him long-term and won a Stanley Cup with the first year, and they gave up minimal things to get him. You'd be willing to give up a Jordan Kyrou or a disgruntled Vladimir Tarasenko to bring Matthew Tkachuk back to a place he loves so dearly and lives in the offseason. He'll probably move back in with his parents. So,
yeah, I think he's...
Keith Tkachuk still lives in St. Louis. He's hosted Blues players in his basement that have been called. But anyway, that's all going to play out as it's going to play out. Christian, while we wrap things up, you Nostradamus, Nino Niederreiter to the Nashville Predators. Congratulations, sure. What are the Powerball numbers tonight? Because it's like $690 million or something.
I'll get that to myself.
Yeah. You.
Austin Matthews.
Sorry, fan favorites. Give me fuel, give me fire. Goodbye, Nino Niederreiter. Okay. Metallica's going to sue us like they sued Napster now. Okay, for Christian Emery, Desmond Johnson, all of you for sticking around and listening to us spout stuff. Thanks. We love you. Good night, Canada.